conducts, brings out the heat and turns it into spark, or however you want to put the whole thing. So that's how this system works. Now let's go back. I will show you another system that is called ignition coil. So the ignition coil system just does not consist of a distributor. So what happens is that they decided to let all the ignition coils get their own power from the battery themselves, and then they can convert that into heat and then spark, and then the electrode sparks, and then there's combustion in the engine. So now I will quickly show you what that system looks like. So it's an easy one to do. So this is a Mazda 6, a 2010 Mazda 6. So this is what an ignition coil looks like. So that system, the other system that I was showing you before, as leads, this has coils, so you can see individually. So if I've got a misfire in this cylinder, I can just replace the spark plug, because they're not getting the power from a precise distributor. Everyone has got its own power. So if I have a misfire in one, you can actually change one. But majority of the time, I always recommend that if one is faulty and you've driven on it for a while, what would have happened is that it's just like you would have your car majorly running on 3 cylinders. So it means that each of those cylinders will be overworking themselves, so it will still have to run your car the right way. So if you've got problems like that and you let it linger for a long time, I always recommend that you replace all 4, because if one is out, they bought them at the same time. So if one goes out, the other 3 are not far behind as well. So this is what an ignition coil system looks like. So it gets the power from same way from as the ignition lead one. Same from here, comes back in, and then you get power to it from the battery straight away. Now let's talk about a little bit about misfire when you have backed ignition coil. So most of the time when you have backed ignition coils, you'll get a check engine light on your dash saying that, oh, there's a misfire in the system. So what that would mean is that your injectors would be squirting fuel into the system, but your ignition coil is not going to be producing spark to actually take out that oil, so to take out that to complete the combustion in the system. So what would happen is that you would have excess fuel burning through the system. Then you start noticing that your car takes too much fuel, because there's some fuel is going in and is not getting burnt, and then you just start smelling fuel. Sometimes it just, the fuel has to find somewhere to go. It has to find a way to get out of the system. If it has to get out of the system, it has to either go into the exhaust system or go into the intake system. It has to find a way to escape anyway. So it's not very good. When you notice a misfire, just fix it straight away, because what you'd be doing is that one of the cylinders, which is, if it's on cylinder 4, that cylinder would just be there, and it would just keep it would just be there. There would be no combustion, because don't forget that the rocker arms would be pulling it up, but there would not be a sufficient amount of blast to take it back down as well. So your pistons will be wearing out, you start having less combustion as well, so it could cause a lot of damage to your engine when you have a misfire. So when you've got a misfire, you get it fixed as well. So let's go back to the distributor system. So with this system, it's different. You really can't replace one of this. And once, if you can see the system, you can see they're in 2s. There's some of the systems where you have everything on one. It's just one distributor. So I think you can take each individual distributor out and replace them. So with this system, you can just replace one, but you'd be replacing 2 for 2 cylinders as well. So with this system, you can't just replace one, you pretty much have to replace everything. So with the systems that have got a whole distributor, that all 4 of them is just on one distributor, that's big enough, what would happen, you have to replace the whole distributor, and you have to replace ignition leads as well. But whereas when you have a coil system, you can just take out one coil and put it in. That's not advisable, but yeah, you can actually still do that if you technically do that if you want. So Now, another thing that's very important is the electrodes on the spark plug. So these electrodes, over time, when you use them, when they spark, they actually wear out. So what you're looking for, I don't know if we can see this properly. So you can see that there's a gap between the electrode and the metal that's up here. That gap has to be at the precise set amount. I think some of them has got 0.4. You can use a feeler gauge. There's something we call a feeler gauge. You can use a feeler gauge to measure the space. So what you need to do is, most of the time when you buy a spark plug, don't always trust it that it is all good. So double check every spark plug before you put them in, because what would happen is the spark only jumps between the electrode and the metal up top here. That's the space at which the spark jumps. Now if it's too far, if you open it a lot more than this, what would happen is it would have to be jumping too high, and if it's too low, it will be jumping too low, so you'd still have misfire. There are times where I've actually fixed the spark plug. I probably didn't check the gap, and I fixed one and I still had a misfire. Then I went to check every other thing. I noticed that one of the spark plugs, the gap in between was actually very, very close to the electrode. You don't want that. So I had to measure the the three others that was perfectly good. Then I put them out and I replaced them. So I then used a feeler gauge to gauge the space, the gap. So you always have to double check that at all point in time, so you can have a misfire and it won't be a problem with the lead or the coil or the distributor. It might just be the gap in between the spark plugs as well. So when you replace one, you always have to double check. So that's one of the tips that you always have to find. So I've told you a little bit about the ignition lead one. If you've got an ignition lead system, this is how it works. Gets power from here, puts it to the distributor. The distributor puts it to the ignition leads, and then you have spark. Like the other system, which is this one, that has got the you've got your pretty much your distributor in this already. That's why it's a bit this chunky. So you've got everything in one. So let us know if you want me to do like an in-depth analysis on why misfire comes up. There's a couple of things that can cause a misfire. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a misfire, it might not just be. I think I've had a 2009 Toyota Corolla that came in. It's got a misfire, but there's no engine light. So because there's no engine light doesn't mean that ignition coil is not faulty. That precise one had cylinder 4 ignition coil bad. It was bad. And I had another, this same vehicle, I had the spark plug. I'll show you what happened to me on that one. What happened to me was that you can see this white part of the spark plug. Can't remember what they call it anyway. So it was completely cracked from up top to bottom. That caused that car not to fire properly. So this is another thing you need to double check at all point in time. And please, if you buy used spark plugs, it is not good. It is very, very bad for you to put a used spark plug in your car. Reason being that, like I said, the spark plug has worked for however months or however years that's been in the system. Same way, this electrode, they eat out as much. There's no way the electrode will remain the same once you start using it. So it's just like burning a firewood and expect the firewood to not either short in lifespan or just like finish anyway. So these electrodes, they actually eat out as well. So you have to make sure that you buy a brand new spark plug, because the electrodes will be complete, and then check with a feeler gauge to make sure the gaps are fine. So pretty much, if you have any more questions or you want me to be specific on a precise one, another thing that causes misfire as well is low compression in the cylinders. You have to make sure that there's enough compression. So if you've got a misfire, your engine doesn't run properly, changing the spark plugs or ignition coils would probably not do it sometimes. Sometimes as well, you don't have any compression in the system, so you carry out a compression test to make sure that you've got proper and good compression in all the systems. So pretty much that's basically it. I've covered a fair bit on that. If you need more information or more questions, please put it through and I will be very, very happy to answer it. So because I didn't get precise questions, I just had to do the general system. So if you really want me to touch on anything, please be precise. Ask questions and be precise, and then I will come back. I will it's always advisable as well for you to ask on Instagram so that we can have your handle, so we can tag you to that question. Once I answer it, I'll put it back on the Instagram and then post it and tag you, so that way you get knowledge as much as you want. So please visit autofixer.com.ng. if you have any questions. There's always .fix. We're always on .fix. The technician is always on there, so please let us know if you have any questions or problems. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, please send it through and we'll be happy to help you out. Stay tuned. Thank you.